Okay, so the more I look over this show, the more I really start to think that I should make use of the outside perspective while I still have it. Try to bring something new to the table and all that. And plus, there has been just way too much chumminess around here lately, and I hate all that goodwill. So what I'm gonna do is start a little series focusing in on the specific points where I've really seemed to disagree with most of the fandom. Try to zero in on where exactly the split comes in, and how much of a case, if any, I can make from my perspective. And for starters, I'm going to look at the question I brought up in my recent review of For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils. Did it turn Sweetie Belle into just a little brat?
Now, when I said in my review that I didn't like the direction this episode took Sweetie Belle, who I'd previously picked as my favorite of the three Crusaders, and that her harsh, petty treatment of Rarity just didn't feel like the same character, a lot of you were quick to come to her defense, citing the complex jealousy that can enter into sibling relationships like this, as well as the fact that Rarity has gotten most of the attention in the past, and the two of them have clashed over conflicting interests before. But I just wasn't feeling it, and it at least seems like I'm not the only one. But why not, though? I didn't have any trouble accepting back and putting down your hoof that Fluttershy, who's usually everyone's whipping horse, was more than happy to do some of the whipping once someone showed her how. Well, it admittedly is a pretty thin line, but sometimes what's relatable just isn't the same as what's fitting of the particular character, depending on the progression at least. For example, there's a Sundance movie starring Robin Williams called World's Greatest Dad about an underappreciated English teacher who dreams of making it big as an author. He begins writing philosophical journal entries from the perspective of a depressed teenager and signing them in the name of his son Kyle, even though Kyle is nothing but a pathetic douchebag who exists to watch porn and take advantage of everyone around him. And yes, that's Junie from Spy Kids playing him. The students who go to school with Kyle hate him for obvious reasons, but once the journal goes public and they start to read it, they begin to see him as very misunderstood and insightful, someone who really understands the pain they all go through, and he becomes a local hero. The only one who doesn't buy it is a meek boy named Andrew, who was Kyle's only friend before all of this started. He's seen what Kyle's like when the chips are down and when they're not. It's still fresh in his memory. And the idea that Kyle's been carrying around all of this anguished insight doesn't make it sound like Andrew's been missing this whole other dimension to him this whole time. It sounds silly. He confronts the dad about it, who explains that Kyle was always very smart. He just hid it from everyone, including Andrew, because he was afraid of being treated differently by his fellow students. Which is something very common and very identifiable, but as Andrew points out, it still just doesn't match this particular person. Kyle was already being treated different by his fellow students. They hated him, and for good reason. He was the one being a douche in the first place, and when they did treat him badly, he did everything he could to hit back, no matter what he had to stoop to, as though he thought he was entitled to it. If he was really so smart, he would have loved shoving that in everyone's face. It would have been his greatest weapon. Now obviously I'm not the Andrew to the fanbase's students, but on the other hand, we are talking about a character that everyone liked in the first place rather than hated, and after sitting through all of these episodes in a relatively short span of time, that is sort of how I felt watching it. Sweetie Belle was petty, underhanded, and malicious in this episode, where before, even when she was mad at Rarity, there was always an earnest sincerity to it. She wasn't always sweet, but the desire motivating her usually was. Plus, she really seemed to have this jealousy complex with Rarity that she just never showed before. She was never trying to catch up to Rarity, nor was she intimidated by her. Other than the fact that Rarity was sort of the authority figure in their relationship, Sweetie Belle treated her like they were pretty much on equal ground, trying to get what she wanted from her as a sister without really considering or caring who was more accomplished between them.
But anyone can have a bad day. Does this really contradict anything from the character as we've seen her so far?
Well, there aren't really any explicit examples of her ever feeling this way in the first place, but I guess you can interpret this bit here as admiration through jealousy.
Sweetie Belle, I think you should be the singer. What? No way I'm singing in front of a crowd. Twilight said to do something we like to do. And I'd like to be like my big sister. And she's a designer.
Even though she clearly said she likes to be like her big sister, not that she wants to shine as bright as her, and in fact she just passed up the chance to shine by doing something she's actually good at, in favor of being closer to Rarity, which sort of makes this whole thing seem even more absurd when you consider...
Like I said, they can get away with that part. So what about the progression? What following the conflict leads Sweetie Belle specifically to react the way she does?
Well, let's see. We have her excitement over the play's apparent success, the crushing disappointment at the fact that nobody could remember anything besides the costumes, the moment when she confronts Rarity.
There! I knew it! You did this on purpose! Stealing the spotlight like you always do!
And right there. Since when was Sweetie Belle the type to be a competitive sore sport? I mean, disappointed over not being as good as she wanted to be, sure, but angry over whether she can outdo someone because she wants praise for its own sake? Really? I mean, never mind the superficial examples, like not caring about losing the Sisterhood social or having a great time bowling even when she gets all gutter balls. Remember the first part of Sisterhood social, which Rarity spent flat out telling Sweetie Belle that she wasn't doing a good job? Even at rock bottom, Sweetie Belle never tried to argue that she should be getting more credit. In fact, she went too far the other way, getting down on herself and assuming that she was a big screw-up, which she needed Applejack to snap her out of. The only thing she did get mad at Rarity for was dismissing her attempts to be nice, because all she wanted, through and through, was some bonding time with her sister, and Rarity was giving her the opposite. Now, I guess you could argue that, like her two friends, she does want to discover her special talent and get a cutie mark, so... Well, no, that still doesn't involve trying to outdo anyone or getting praise for its own sake. They usually try things that they personally just think would be really fun and exciting, and don't involve an audience. And even when that's not the case, it still comes across like it's mostly about achievement, with the audience at most acting as a confirmation of the results. The Crusaders don't lash out when they fail, or become vain when they succeed. And that goes for Sweetie Belle most of all, since she's the only Crusader who never needed to be validated just because something she personally was hoping for didn't work out. In fact, this kind of thing with the little sister growing an inferiority complex and lashing out is something I could picture happening much more easily with Applejack and Applebloom, even with the fact that they're depicted as better at working together and much closer in personality, because their relationship actually does involve a lot of the older sister running the show and the little sister being put in the back seat. And Applebloom actually has considered the blow to her ego before and tried to prove that she was capable. So it actually would be in line with her character and not just based on the trivial note that they're sisters and one of them happens to get more attention. Sweetie Belle, though I never actually realized you could take it this far before, has probably been the least egoic of the entire main cast. Everyone else has either been more caught up in getting someone else's validation or more insecure about potentially not having it. Even Pinkie Pie, we've seen, can fall to pieces when she thinks she might not have her friend's approval. Sweetie Belle was usually looking to just go out and have fun, which was probably her most endearing quality. She didn't care about winning anyone's approval, or even so much how she came across. And if it didn't work out, well, she'd try something else. She wasn't inhuman that way, of course, but you'd always have to bring the conflict to her, and even then it would only extend to getting defensive about that particular thing. And that didn't need to change. She had her own character flaws unique to her. Like being a little too thoughtless in her enthusiasm for something, or maybe needing to learn some gumption. With that in mind, you'd think her reaction to Rarity upstaging her would be to get down on herself and maybe try to put some distance between the two of them. Kinda like how in One Bad Apple she was the least resilient of her friends, as well as the last one to consider striking back.
Okay, so it's definitely different from the Sweetie Belle we've seen before. Not the same kind of reaction and not the same kind of motivation. But could there at least be a plausible reason in sight for the change?
Did she finally just get sick of Rarity upstaging her so many times? What do you mean so many times, other than that 5th birthday party that they also just made up for this episode that's never even been a part of their relationship before? Not any part we've been shown. Did she become more and more hopeful while working on this play until it actually made her big-headed? Well, being as we never actually see her working on it, that's pure speculation, and therefore the character insight needed to make that work isn't there. Is she coming down with a severe case of preteen angst, altering what makes her tick?
Actually, yeah, that would kind of make sense. In fact, it's not the first sign we've seen that she might be growing and changing.
I mean, the singing in Sleepless in Ponyville that sounded like they were trying to summarize puberty in 30 seconds, the attempt to mastermind using Twilight to gain popularity in Twilight time. Yeah, this might be a genuine depiction of someone getting a little older, changing what they consider important, and even shedding some of their endearing qualities. And that's not always the way it happens, as Cutie Mark Chronicles pointed out. But that is the way it happens sometimes. That doesn't mean I have to like it, though. I mean, Sweetie Belle as she was before had a lot going for her, and this new teenage thanks Sweetie Belle just pours on the pettiness so suddenly that it's hard to really appreciate her the same way. I mean, the way she gets off on taking Rarity down with her, it's genuinely obnoxious. And that's assuming that that is what they had in mind, and it's not a simple case of, we don't care, it's the story we felt like telling. So yeah. Without improvement, it could make sitting through some of next season's episodes a chore. But it does provide them with a new and legitimate perspective to explore that could be interesting. So stay tuned, I guess.
Do you disagree with my perspective? Do you like new Sweetie Belle any more than I do? Leave a comment and let me know. Or if you'd rather, you can come to the My Little Pony forums, where I've set up shop to start threads on these topics, just in case any of you find them worth debating a little more.
Hey, you can't join those and claim you're not a brony!
Yeah, I guess that's kind of true, disembodied voice of me. It's going to be kind of hard to reconcile anyway. I guess I'm going to have to be even harsher on you guys to mask these deep-seated insecurities of mine. So keep your gloves up, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Who needs a birthday girl when you've got the birthday girl's amazing big sister?
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, just send me enough money to retire at 24, and I promise I'll never make one again. And don't forget to send me your videos and fan art on the show for Viewer Appreciation Corner. Thanks for watching.